So now, if generative AI comes into this place, what will happen? My view on this, my point of view, the generative AI will help us analyzing the information coming from process mining.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process. Welcome to the next episode of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I'm the host of Process Pioneers, and welcome back to another episode. If this is your first time with us, a warm welcome. We've got a large library of interviews and conversations that I've had the privilege of being part of. And if you've been watching us for some time, then welcome back. We'd appreciate a rating or a review on whatever platform that you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. If you can help us with a rating or a review, that's going to help us continue to spread this message and get this podcast out to an even wider audience. We've received many great comments and feedback about the interviews and the educational component of it. And that's what we're all about here, is sitting down with practitioners, process practitioners that are putting BPM into practice day in and day out. And we certainly get to glean a lot from these experts. So in today's conversation, I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with Ankush Jain. Now, Ankush is a principal consultant in the area of digital process automation for a very large service-based consulting company in India. Ankush has worked with many organizations, many global organizations around the world in this particular topic. So very excited for this conversation. Ankush, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Daniel. It's a privilege to be on this forum and talking to you.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited that we were able to make this happen. I know we've been talking for some time, Ankush, so it's been, I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation. And I think one topic that's quite a popular topic at the moment and has been for pretty much all of 2023 is this topic of artificial intelligence. And it's great that we're able to have someone on the podcast that you have an interest and a passion in this topic as well. And in particular, how does it apply or relate in the context of business process management? I know that there's a lot of people out there that want to know what does this mean for us as process practitioners? How is it going to change the business landscape? What does that mean for us? And there's a lot of information out there. There's lots of buzzwords and hype and all of this, but maybe not as much clarity at the moment. So I guess to kick off, talk to us about generative AI and BPM. Firstly, what is generative AI for those audience members that aren't fully aware?
Yeah, right. So generative AI and BPM, when we talk about, all this, generative AI become the buzzword, as you said, Daniel. People don't want to miss on any opportunities. They think their competitors, their peers are behind it. So they want to catch up on that. There is fear of missing out if they don't do. So they want to start with that. Now, when we talk about generative AI, anything and everything that a human can do is expected that, looking at the algorithms, looking at some analysis, generative AI will do a task for us. So now when we talk about BPM, we talk about business process management, starting with, say discovery, designing the processes, implementing those processes, identifying again the improvement opportunities so that we can close loop the cycle, we can do the continuous improvement, and we keep monitoring it again through, say, the way we used discovery. Say traditionally we used to do discovery through workshops with interviews, with the documentation available. Now we do those through bit of mining, process mining or task mining. We use those. So now, if generative AI comes into this place, what will happen? My view on this, my point of view. Today, we are analyzing that information. The generative AI will help us analyzing the information coming from process mining. The bottlenecks that we are identifying, we are using the human brains, we are using our domain experience, we are using our analytical skills. If we are leveraging generative AI will do a lot of this stuff for us. It will
Okay.
identify those bottlenecks. It will help us identifying the areas for improvements. Now, if I take a next step and consider that, I want to document this process now. I want to model this process in different tools. Today, a lot of tools are available in the market, be it, uh, I don't want to take any product name because we are not here talking about any product. It's like product agnostic. But
Mm.
all the products which are supporting the process modeling, if I'm using generative AI, I can use that for documenting my process. So I have identified something through my mining. I've analyzed it through generative AI. It is giving me opportunities for improvement. It is giving me identification of the bottlenecks, and AI is helping me, you know, uh, modeling or documenting that process.
Mm.
Now, something which is important. This is all reactive. The other one is more important, which is predictive analysis. So predictive analysis also generative AI plays a role where we talk about forecasting, uh, looking at the different trends of mining. If I'm
Mm.
using monitoring my process, it will predict what will go wrong, and it will help us you know uh, stopping or monitoring, alerting our process then and there. So we don't
Yeah.
put a lot of focus when the problem occurs. We can look at that uh, before it actually comes. So all this is power of generative AI. Today
Mm.
people are using or trying to use it in different capacity. uh, we touched about say discovery part of design part, the second one the documenting one, the third one where it has a lot of role to play is in the real automation. So in BPM we talk about discovery, design, and then deploy, which
Mm-hmm.
is your implementation. So AI has a role, in fact a bigger role in doing the process automation. So today, when we are using, the in BPM, we consider everything, right? Whether it is workflow management, whether it is robotic process automation, whether it is anything else which is related to automation, the generative AI has a bigger role in the process automation space as well. It can be
Mm-hmm.
employed to automate, repetitive rule-based tasks that we are doing. Whether see when we're thinking of RPA, we want to have a structured information. Uh, Today, the non-cognitive things also can be automated. But when we talk about AI, we just look at, if the information is structured, non-structured, if our AI is trained to do that, to build that automation, generative AI will have a lead, will have the edge on building all this sort of automation. So it has a bigger role in the process automation space as well. So if I
Mm.
compare to cutting my the long point to a short discussion, it is like it has a role to play in discovery, it has a role to play in design, and it has also a role to play in deploy. So generative AI can help us in all these phases in BPM.
Fantastic. No, that's great insight there. And when it comes to the solutions for generative AI, are these isolated standalone solutions, or is this existing systems and software building AI into their existing tools?
Some tools, because as service industry started following up on the generative AI and they want to see it, the initial ones were isolated. Most of them were isolated, but today the package providers, the product companies are also integrating this into their products. So, for example, when I talked about the predictive analysis or doing the process analysis in mining, today a lot of process mining tools have already started incorporating the AI and generative AI features into their product itself. So
Right.
they're no more in silos, but still there are some pieces which are like very niche. They are just focusing on one bit, then the entire life cycle. They are still in isolation.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes. Okay. No, that's fantastic. And where, as a starting point, so we've got an audience here listening, and they come from a wide range of organizations. Some of them have implemented BPM quite extensively, and they're well on their journey from a maturity level. Others are just starting out. When it comes to exploring generative AI and BPM, you were saying it has a place in the discovery, in the design, in the deploy, but where should you start?
I think, in my opinion, they should start more on the discovery first. If they are following the entire life cycle, people are already using it in the deploy in different capacity through it, BPM or be it not be BPM. They will look at in the they will look for generative AI as a replacement or as an alternate option to any of their automated solutions. So they are already looking at that and they are implementing it. But if they want to leverage the real power of generative AI, I think they should start from the upstream, from discovery itself, so that they are able to discover where is the actual problem and what is the actual problem, where they are seeing real bottlenecks. Sometimes it happens, we are looking at a solution which we feel that our process is broken, and we implement the solution there. But let me give you an example. I'm having, say, the cold, cough, and fever today. I'm thinking of, working on any of these symptoms. But if I do my blood check, and if I know I'm doing the discovery, okay, when I'm doing the blood testing, it is helping me with the values of different components within the blood. Something is within range, something is outside the range. I'm now doing the discovery and I'm trying to fix my problem where the actual problem is lying. So generative AI, if we are using this in discovery, it will help me spotting my problem in the discovery itself, so that I can fix my broken process right from discovery, not because I'm feeling that my process is broken at some XYZ point. I'll more look at it from a pragmatic way, where the entire life cycle of the process, wherever there are problems, I'm looking at those and I'm trying to solve those problems. So ultimately, my problems which I was feeling that there would be a problem, my feeling may wrong, but because it was more on the expression. But today, when I have a real data with me and then I'm fixing it, I'll fix the right problem. Sometimes, if I'm leveraging AI at some tasks which are, say, less important, less significant, so I'm not getting the outcome as I expect, because I'm putting more cost on implementing a solution to a problem which is less significant to me. So today, if I'm using it in the discovery part, I'm getting the real problems, I'm fixing those. The rest of the things will get fixed automatically. This is my view.
Yes, yeah. When it comes to process mining, because I know that one of the bigger challenges with organizations starting with process mining is around the quality of data that they have. And it's not a blocker, but it just maybe it points out what they need to do in order to get their data in a process mining ready state. Can generative AI help in the cleanup of data before sending it through a process mining engine?
No, this is a good thought, good perspective. I didn't thought of this, but I am sure generative AI will have a role to play here as well, provided provided we have a long data set, the data set, and where the rules are already defined, at least to train it on what we want to fix and what kind of format our mining mining tool will extract or will ingest into itself. So if that is given, I think AI can play a role there too. This is very important when it comes to, say, a process which has multiple source systems. Now your formatting goes on to mesh. You create a data lake. You want to see, the information coming from different sources sits in your data lake, and then data lake is like cleansed. A lot of effort goes there as well. So as you
mm,
have rightly pointed out, if AI can play a role there, it will give us ready-made data to be plugged in into a mining tool. And then
mm,
rest of the part where we talked about analysis, etc., can be taken care of easily as well. Good
mm,
perspective.
mm, Yeah, because I know that's having the right data is 70-80% of the effort. You would know better than me, how important it is having good data to put into a process mining tool, because once you've got that good data, then process mining can start to have a look and analyze what's actually going on. But I guess when it comes to generative AI, it's using well, I guess this is a question. Is it just using the data from that you plug into it, or is it also tapping into industry best practices and what else is out there? Does it have the ability to have a look more from a global perspective and then compare your company and processes across a wider industry?
Yeah, right. So I think that is like the second point, Daniel. You remember I talked about an example of a blood test where something which I'm extracting out of my blood test or I'm getting out of my blood test. But when I'm comparing it with the range, this range is nothing but the industry
Yes.
parameters,
Okay.
what industry is following. So AI can, generative AI, what role it can play is, for example, I have done all these analysis on the standalone process of my organization. I don't have data coming in from different sources, or I don't have that data range created. Now there are a lot of industry frameworks which are available, and organizations like APQC, etc., are maintaining the KPIs for different processes. So if AI can look at different sources, extract this information, combine it per industry, okay, per vertical, and depending upon the size of it. For example, the mid-size company will have a different value of the different KPI range than a large company. A small company will also have a different range than the other one. So
Sure.
AI can actually look at balancing all those. Something which is say, for example, if it's suiting for my organization may not suit for organization which is smaller in size. So it can play that role, and it can create a real value, a smart value rather, which is achievable by my organization, and it is still helping me to match up with the industry standards.
That's great. That's really good. I think it needs to be easy and intuitive for the end users. I think at the end of the day, it's all about making better decisions, and if we can leverage artificial intelligence to do a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the thinking for us, then ultimately that, I could see one day doing a process analysis or process discovery and being able to ask questions with your voice to a computer about the processes and then of the organization, and the artificial intelligence engine using voice to talk back to you. So being able to ask it, where is in the finance area of our organization, where should we be focusing our improvement, like our time on improvement? And the computer's going to talk back and say, well, based on the information that we have, this is where the greatest urgency is. There's a huge bottleneck here in this particular process. In fact, there's a task here, and what we would recommend is the changes that we would recommend is you need to deploy more resources, or we need to adapt or adjust the process. We need to remove these steps, add these steps in. So not only highlighting where things have gone wrong, but also providing recommendations.
Correct. But only thing is, we should not force feed the generative AI or AI for that matter into all these scenarios. Today, what is happening because of that phrase, fear of missing out, Everybody is trying to fit in the generative AI for the problems they're trying to solve. Sometimes you don't need a bigger solution like this to solve your smaller things. So that should be kept in mind. Plus,
Mm.
also the bigger organizations, what we have seen, they have initial interest into doing uh, the the leading technologies. They want to leverage on it, etc. But at the same time, they don't actually, do away with their traditional approaches, their technologies that they are using. They are very redundant to, or reluctant rather, to change the way they are operating, they are working.
Mm.
So people have to be more agile, flexible. At the same time, they should be mindful of using this topic, using this generative AI, uh, absolutely for the use case which is very prominent for that.
Mm.
It should not be force fitted anywhere.
Yes, I agree. Would you say that in the same way, in the same way that process mining has really brought BPM back up on the radar of senior leaders because it's now enabled better decision making, greater insights into what's actually happening in the organization? Because I guess traditional BPM, running workshops and asking questions and trying to understand what's actually going on, that was one thing. But then actually seeing the data of the actual process and what's actually going on, and the insights that came along with that, that was obviously very valuable for senior leaders and them making decisions. Would you say generative AI is almost the next level of value or insights that can be extracted from business processes?
Yeah, I mean, if I consider only for discovery, what you said is right. If I go beyond this, as we were saying, right, it has a role to play in design, it has a role to play in deploy as well. So if we limit it to discovery, it is a next stage of what we are doing currently, the mining. So that, because people have seen the value of it, right? I mean, mining started a few years ago, but when it started that time, it was not considered as a suitable option for discovery. Obviously, because product was maturing, the concept was evolving, and people haven't used that to the fully. Now, when they're looking at the different source systems, the out of box connectors which are available, ready to use data is made available, solutions are created. Now everybody is seeing the value and people are using it. So in the coming days, when AI actually helps them understand whatever decisions that people are taking today, that if I plug in my solution, it is actually discovering the process plus also helping me doing the analysis and giving me the recommendations. Obviously, the recommendations, because when we talk about anything which is about improving the process, we just don't limit it for something which is uh, automated, right? Our improvement opportunities are always into different spaces. For example, if I have a list of opportunities, I would classify them into opportunities which could be implemented by IT solutions, like the AI, BPM, RPA, workflow management, everything and anything in that space. But second could be my traditional one, which is about more business process reengineering. I will re-engineer my process. I'll do the value add, non-value add analysis. I'll remove some non-value add blocks from my processes. So that re-engineering will also happen. So though we're bringing the AI and generative AI into this space, what I feel, the recommendations will still happen through AI, but the manual intelligence, the consulting approach will still have a role to play. Something which is more domain driven. Okay. Something which is more domain driven, something which is based on your experiences, your learnings, the experiences that you have seen working for other customers, not working for some customers. That intelligence will also have a role to play. What it is helping you is giving you a boost, giving you a speed up it takes you to the next level where you don't want to wait for your initial analysis. You're
Mm,
doing it through the AI, but fine tuning it, making sure the recommendations are more customized to your customer. They are
mm,
more appropriate to their needs. That is happening through the consulting approach, where you bring in your domain experience as well. I'm not
mm,
saying this cannot be uh, this cannot be replaced through AI. Situation might come that these are also coming through the AIs, but at this moment, the manual intelligence, the domain experience that the consultant should have, it still has a role to play. It is helping you,
yes.
giving you a boost up on the initial analysis. Rest all you'll have to do. But at the same time, what support it is giving you, it is taking you on a track where you need to fine tune. You're not
Mm,
going here and there, spreading out all the directions. You're not doing that. Your analysis will be more focused. So
mm,
it should be leveraged in the combination of the AI, the combination of manual intelligence, the domain experiences, and the consulting acumen. If all
mm.
this is clubbed together, it will have its whole good role to play.
No, that's great. That's really good. And when it comes to obviously the discovery piece, as you're saying, it's a great first step, and I think it's an obvious first step. When it comes to the design, more so the design and deploy, how does generative AI, how will that play a part in design and deploy? As we move into the future.
Right. So deploy. I'll skip it for the next say a discussion. Next discussion, as in few minutes. But I'll
Mm-hmm.
first start about the design.
Mm-hmm.
So today, when we talk about documenting any processes, let's not just talk about the process models to be created, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today, when we are doing standard operating procedure getting written for the users so that they can follow the steps which are required to execute their processes, there are solutions which are available where screen scrapping is done, the steps are written. Okay, so if I have AI implemented there, so steps that we are doing on the system plus steps that we are doing outside our application, it is still an application, but outside the application, for example, I am doing the invoice management on my ERP system.
Mm-hmm.
So the steps which I'm doing on ERP will get recorded. It will help me designing and documenting that processes. But at the same time, if I'm doing some manual steps, it is also keeping track of it. So solutions which are implemented on my desktop. I'm not talking about task mining here, by the way. The
Mm-hmm.
solutions which are implemented on the desktop where somebody is uh, doing some steps to execute a process, that will also get documented. So
Mm-hmm.
it is helping you documenting your as is process. Again, this is your as is process, but you want to still see a gap analysis coming through what is your standard process.
Mm-hmm.
So ERP is recommending invoice management in certain way, but the way your organization is doing this, they have customized some bits and you are following differently.
Mm-hmm.
So it is helping you identifying those gaps as well in the gap analysis. Though you are helping yourself to design the process or document the process. I'll not say the design the process. You are documenting it yet. Now your documented process is extracted in different forms and tables. So some process modeling tools which are available today, they are actually taking the uh, table-based process modeling
Mm-hmm.
in the tabular form. So to make it
Mm-hmm.
simple for our audience, let's say that you're documenting this process through different forms of the documents, but then you are extracting the information, putting it in Excel. That Excel gets
Mm-hmm.
uploaded on the process modeling tool, and your BPM and models gets created.
Mm-hmm.
So you are actually helping yourself design the process. Today, a lot of dependency on the process modelers to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Organizations are spending cost on the licenses for doing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, as I said, for discovery, the human touch is very much required. Same thing lies here as well. What
Mm-hmm.
it is helping you is to create your level 1, level 2, level 3 processes, sometime
Mm-hmm.
level 4 processes as well in the happy path. But you still have something which is like, exceptional scenarios, something which is more like, intelligence on your decisions of which path it should go, which path it should not go. Those you will actually document or model in your design with, the domain experiences that consultant will have. Here
Mm-hmm.
as well, AI is helping you, uh, you know jumping up or giving jump start to level 1, level 2, level 3, and sometime to level 4 happy path scenarios. So
Mm-hmm.
that design of the processes is happening through all of this, and then consultants are helping themselves actually fine tuning it, getting it, taking it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
When we are connecting our level 4s to a SOP, we already have those documentation created through screen scraps and some solutions which are available. When somebody is executing the processes, these documents are created that you can click and link it to your level 4 process so that you can
Mm-hmm.
make it to the SOP level. So that
Yeah.
is on design.
Mm-hmm.
You also talked about the deploy, when we will use and how we will use in deploy or automate.
Mm-hmm.
So I think uh, people are already using it, knowingly or unknowingly, to doing the for doing the process automation through
Mm-hmm.
AI.
True.
They're doing it in components. They're doing it in silos. They don't know that they already left over the the upstream activities of discovery and design. So they're doing it. For example, when we have that list of automations, a list of improvement opportunities which are categorized into automation and business process reengineering. Automation
Mm-hmm.
is further classified into what can be solved through BPM, what can be solved through RPA, what can be solved through workflow management, again, and what can be solved through AI. So they'll leverage now the power of AI, which is available to actually implement their solutions and deploy it through the AI. Few uh, use cases that they can think of is, something which has a ready-made solution available, be it your notifications, be doing your emotional analysis, looking at, your mails that you are getting from customer services,
Mm-hmm.
saying sentiment analysis, if I want to use that word, that,
Mm-hmm.
something which is more requiring your attention immediately, something which can wait for a while, etc., etc., so that people can expedite and give respond to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's
These are
great.
basic ones. These are
Yeah.
basic ones, but,
Mm.
looking at the different industry, these use cases may vary. Plus, the
Yes.
complexities may vary. I'm taking and talking about this because people can still connect to it because they're very simple use cases.
No, that's great. That's fantastic. I think, it is a big topic and will be a huge topic in the future, and many use cases, many
Absolutely.
applications of it. Discovery, design, deploy. There's got to be lots of opportunities, and I think probably the biggest question that'll be on a lot of people's mind is, where should we start? What do we start with? What's most important? And I think, touching on today, discovery. I think a lot of organizations, they don't actually know, like, they don't know their processes. They don't know how well they're complying with their processes. If they do feel like they know their processes. So I think the discovery piece, being able to discover what's actually happening, what's going on, I think that's a great starting place, because you need to know that before you can do any improvement or optimization or any further analysis. What's happening right now? Where are we? What's our starting point? So I think that's fantastic. But Ankush, I just want to thank you for sitting down with me. It's been very insightful. I've been learning a lot, gleaning a lot from you in this conversation. I think that it's such a big topic for a 30-minute conversation. It's a bit hard to.
Absolutely.
We're just scraping the surface of it, and I'm sure that the audience have even more questions that they'd love to ask you. So. I guess for those that do want to connect and continue the conversation, where do they best go to connect with you?
I think LinkedIn is the best way to keep connected. They can post their questions there. Wherever possible, we can answer it. And if the range of question is high, and probably we need to have second session or third session, we'll definitely look forward for that. But
Yep.
initial one is to give some insights on what I'm experiencing, what I've seen. But at the same time, the questions that audience can ask, I'll also learn. I'll also do some homework, some research for myself to talk in the next episode.
Fantastic. No, that's great. We look forward to inviting you back on. But Ankush, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Daniel. This is nice talking to you. Thank you for this forum.